All right. How you doing?
Yes. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good as well. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic,
Hmm.
and basically just what's going on with him announcing that he's not fully vegan, how people have reacted, and like what we each think. So for anybody that has seen any of my stuff, I kind of come to the defense of Alex. But yeah, how about you? What are your thoughts on what's going on?
That's a broad question. Generally
Mhm.
speaking, I would say um, I'm disappointed, but I'm also not surprised, or I shouldn't be surprised, um, because in retrospect, we could have seen this coming, honestly. My main thought is that he's probably uneducated on nutrition, and he has admitted in the
Mhm.
past that he's not very knowledgeable or confident about that, and arguing for veganism in that respect. Other than that, I I think that he like his thinking surrounding veganism has been welfareist for a long time, and he is focused on minimizing suffering rather than promoting animal rights,
Mhm.
which for me is cause for alarm. Yeah, those are my general thoughts.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's start there. Just as far as the suffering element goes, because in my mind, my focus is also the suffering. But I view that as the ultimate element of animal rights is if there is X amount of suffering, I want as much of that gone as possible.
Hmm.
Is the concern with the focus being animal suffering that most people that have that as a focus don't um have the focus of that number reaching zero, or what's the difference between how you view animal rights and the idea of focusing on suffering?
Well, okay. I should rephrase. I don't think focusing on suffering is necessarily negative. But in the way that Alex has talked about it, that you know, he has made this video that animals don't have the right to life,
Hmm.
and he's kind of promoted the idea or propagated the idea that if an animal is killed humanely or without pain or and no one knows about it, then it's okay.
Hmm.
And there's a problem with that, obviously.
Okay. Well,
Um,
let's look at the rights to life one because I'm very fascinated by that, and I've made three videos on that topic. I don't know if you've seen any
mhm,
of them, but I think what Alex is referring to, well, so there's a couple elements. So you have natural rights, which are it's just this
mhm,
idea that we're born with this thing in nature that where we have rights, which I don't know if you believe in, but like I don't think nature cares about us. Like nature is nature. If I'm trying to swim across a river, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. Like nature doesn't care. So I don't believe in the idea of natural rights. And then
mhm,
there's legal rights. So if you get your government to say you can't kill another person, then you're protected. You have the right to free speech, the right to not be killed. I think the government at some point will and should give the right to not kill animals as well. But
mhm,
the rights that Alex, I believe, is talking about is what we personally afford people. Like, so you afford humans the right to not be killed by you, and you
mhm,
afford animals the right to not be killed by you. And so I do the same thing, but somebody that eats meat does not. So I think what Alex's claim is that even us vegans don't afford animals the same rights we afford humans. And usually my go-to to explain that, which is Alex's go-to, is the idea that we will allow mice and snakes to die in fields to get our crops. But because there's complication there, I think one of the easiest ways to explain it with an idea that in a sense doesn't matter, like insects don't matter anywhere near as much as mammals do, but insects still feel pain. We shouldn't just randomly squish a bug just for fun. But if you look at the bumper of a car, I don't know if you drive, but every bumper of every car is covered in dead bugs. And so, because insects are so far down on the sentient level, um, we don't view them as a reason to not drive, and so we don't afford them the same rights, even us vegans, the same rights as we afford humans. Now we might afford them rights more than your average person that doesn't have empathy for animals. Like when I see a worm in the street, I'll pick it up and put it in an area with dirt, just because like I can't live with myself if I don't help out in that sense. But at the same time, I might have, if I saw 100 worms, I might have to not get them all. But if I saw 100 babies, I would call in sick for work and I would take care of them all. So I think what Alex means, and if you disagree, is that we just don't afford them the same rights in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's kind of what I picked up as well from his video. But he doesn't really talk about, you mentioned the car example that we accidentally run over animals when driving
Mhm.
cars, but we also accidentally run over humans when driving cars. Those are also
Mhm.
incidental deaths, but that doesn't have any impact on the idea whether we think humans deserve rights.
Yeah, well, so my reaction to that, whether it's car accidents with us in the car or hitting people outside of the car, which I'm on the spot because I've thought of the one in the car but not outside the car. Um, the thing is that we humans understand our world, like we understand what we've created, and like right now, when I actually just drove my car, I took my kid out to my mom's house, and I got on the road knowing that wrecks can happen, and I take that
Mhm.
risk. If I was too worried about it, I could decide I'm not going to drive. And so within our system, we make these decisions. But if a deer hops out onto the street from the forest, that deer didn't agree to our standards. And so like I think that's on us. I think we should make it to where we have plenty of nature for animals to be in, but we should not allow them to get to the level of risking their lives when they don't understand our setup and our system. So if somebody say works on a farm, that person might know they have more of risk than dying than say a nurse or somebody that has a job where there's no risk. So a construction worker or a farm worker might take that risk on, but they're aware of it. But
Mhm.
the mice in the fields, they don't get like an option of you get this warning. Now, don't get me wrong. I think we should eat carrots and potatoes and all these things. And those deaths are accidental deaths, but we know that some will happen and we continue it without them um, being aware of it. So I guess that's the difference I see with accidents that happen. Same with a person stepping out onto the street. I can step out on the street and get hit, and it doesn't change the fact that we humans in general afford each other the right to life. It just means that I took this risk that I probably shouldn't have taken, different from animals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, there's also humans that are not aware of this risk, who can't take this risk, like children, for example.
True. And
Mhm.
children is where it's complicated. Same thing with the
Yeah.
getting in a car, because adults get to choose if their kids go in a car, and therefore they didn't choose when a car wreck
Yeah.
happens. And I guess my only thought on that is that that is just the element of how children work, and how probably children of offspring of animals as well, is there's no other option other than viewing the children as part of the parent. Like the parent has to make the decisions they make. Now we can have laws that try to affect that slightly, but I guess there's no other way to do it. I don't know if that's a reasonable enough answer. It's just that like we can't make a kid know not to step out into the street, so we leave that up to their parent. And luckily we have laws that somebody can get in trouble if they're too if they neglect their children too much. um but I still view that as different as far as how we afford rights. So if I'm driving and a kid jumps out in front of the street and I hit them, this accident happened, but where I wouldn't have let it happen if I knew it was possible. But if I have to, like, I have a garden in my backyard. If I have to go dig up, luckily with my shovel, I'm not going to hurt animals the way that tractors hurt animals. But normally, I wouldn't want to hurt worms or insects or anything. And if I go to dig up potatoes, which is one of the funnest things, I don't know if you have a potato garden, but it's so
No,
fun.
I do not.
You should try it sometime. It's like a looking for Easter eggs, but underground. Um, It's a fun hunt. So because I'm getting this food to survive, I'm willing to take this risk with these animals that have not agreed to this risk. And I'm willing to potentially harm them. And especially with the food I get from grocery stores, I'm willing to eat this food that I know happened from a tractor that killed animals because I need that food. So it's kind of a necessity type thing, which is why it fits into the practicability definition of
Hmm.
veganism. But that's not something I'm willing to do with kids, if that makes sense. So like, if I knew if I knew driving would lead to 3 kids dying a day because of me, I would not drive. Where the tractors
Hmm.
will lead to X amount of dead things each time.
Hmm.
Hopefully that seems hopefully that's consistent enough, especially with the accidental element of it. They're both accidents, but once an accident that is, there's a certain outcome, where like I haven't hit a kid yet. I know it's possible, but I'm not
Hmm.
driving based on knowing there will be an accident every day. Um, yeah, so I don't know if this is reason enough for someone like Alex to point out that we afford different rights, but I think it makes sense to point out that we don't afford them the same rights. Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, I just think it's a weird position to take. I think he thinks
Mm-hmm.
about things like I think he loses sight of the victims very often
Mm.
in the way that he talks about it, and it's very theoretical. Um, and yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think he does the thing I like to do, which is breaking things down to figure out how it works. And it might
yeah,
sound like there's a lack of empathy there, but more so, it's just trying to pinpoint what we actually feel with things that we maybe haven't thought about before. Have you watched his 2 podcasts with Earthling Ed?
I have, yeah, a while ago.
Okay. Do you remember how he asked Ed what would happen in a hypothetical that if you weren't vegan and then when you went vegan it made you shrink 3 feet, and that if you
Oh, I've
stopped
heard
being
that.
vegan you would gain you 3 feet back. Um, Now that this is complicated because it's more of an aesthetic thing where
Hmm.
if we don't need that 3 feet, then who knows? But let's imagine that it's a health element. I think the reason it's good to think about that is because, like us vegans, so I have no plan on eating animal products ever again. And I'm
Hmm.
guessing you're the same way. So
Yeah.
to challenge what that really means for us, the idea of thinking about, okay, well, if I lost 3 feet, what would I do? I would probably eat meat again. Honestly, I don't know how much meat. I don't know how much I would be willing to sacrifice of something else to gain something for myself. But I know if I was on an island and I was going to die, I would, that question people always ask vegans, would you kill a chicken to
Hmm.
survive on an island? I would, because it's about survival. But the reason I'm vegan is because we have an abundance of food. We have grocery stores full of stuff I don't
Hmm.
need to. And so I know some people wouldn't kill the chicken. I talked to a guy yesterday that said him and his wife and his kids, if they were on an island and there was a cow and they were going to die, they would all die with the cow. That sounds crazy to me. No offense if you would also die with the cow, but
I honestly don't know what I would do.
right, it's tough. And
Yeah.
honestly, we might not be able to make that choice. Our instincts
Hmm.
might kick in at a level of starvation where we would do something and later we'd go, I don't even remember doing it. um and so I think the 3 foot thing is just an example of something that sounds unsympathetic, but it's really just making us think past what we've had to think about. Like I'm guessing both me and you have not had to think about what to do when we need to survive because we can eat
Hmm.
in abundance.
True.
Um, so anyways, I guess I just come to Alex's defense in the idea of thinking about these things because I think it's important to think about things that we don't normally think about.
Hmm.
Um, and so like
Hmm.
one element that's similar to how Alex talks about that I think about here and there is, let's say you had a large amount of land. You got grass, trees, all this stuff, and we have cows on this land. And let's say that there's like some kind of chip that's in them that didn't hurt them. We put a chip in them, and this chip can just make their life end instantly. There's no pain. Um it's not like any form of how we kill cows now, but there's a chip in them that could just end their lives instantly. And then these cows are just free roaming, the most free range you could possibly imagine, and they're just living life. And let's say that we know that outside of like a mother and her infant calf, that cows don't make connections to where if their cow buddy is gone the next day, they're not going to notice. This is an idea I like to challenge myself on, and I don't know the answer. But if let's say meat was healthy for us or for some people, if if there were all these cows and there were no cow connections and there was no suffering, and at any given point you just pressed a button, one of them fell over, they were dead, no suffering, and we use that body, do we know enough about cows to say that they have any interest in living or their future or anything like that? This sounds very unvegan, I know, but it's like a level of right. It's a level of what I like to take my ideas to, because it has to make sense, like why we do what we do. So in my mind, I don't want something to suffer. I poke something with a tack, blood comes out, it cries, it's sad. I don't want anything to feel that way. But if you kill something, it will not suffer if you kill it instantly. Like right now, if somebody was behind me, well, I'd see it because the video, but if they're off to the side and they shot me and I was just dead, I wouldn't feel any suffering. But my argument would be that I know I want to be alive. I love being alive. I love doing the things I do, and I want to be alive. And if a cow wants that too, I don't want a cow to die in this weird example I'm telling you about with a chip. But if the cow doesn't want to be alive, if it just is alive and it's doing its thing, as far as me judging my ethical stance, is there any logical reason to care if the cow lives if it doesn't care? I'm going to stop rambling now, but what are your thoughts?
Oh God. Um, I mean, I would say that you would be depriving the cow of like po future positive experience, I guess, if you would
Okay.
look at it in a utilitarian sense, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I would personally say that it's wrong because I mean, if we put humans in that context, if you have the same like chip that kills them and we would breed them into existence to eat them, and some people, if some people would need to eat other people to be healthy or to survive, then I would
Mm-hmm.
also not grant that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't think the fact that we can't know how a cow feels is why I would be against this idea of what I'm even claiming anyways. Although that story I laid out, I would prefer that over obviously everything that happens now, the way it happens, factory farming and all that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't I guess it's mostly just an example of thinking why something might sound strange, like some of Alex's stuff, where it's it's just a way to figure out how we feel. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But even when it comes to like nutrition and stuff, like what magic nutrient is in seafood that Alex needs that he can't get anywhere else, you know?
Right. No, that no, and
Yeah.
that's a good point. And I made a separate video talking about that and talking about Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson, and how it would be tough if you, let's say you experience some horrible amount of pain or suffering yourself
Yeah.
just from how sick you get. And then if you did an action, like say in Alex's case, let's say he was feeling horrible and then he decided he was going to eat some fish and then he instantly felt great. I'm not claiming this happened. This probably didn't happen, but let's just say it did. It would be, as a person that wants to feel good and not feel pain, if that happened, it would be hard to not go, okay, this is a thing I need to do. So my guess in his case and both the Peterson cases is they figured out something that made them feel better in the moment, but they
Mhm.
ignored the fact that there's probably dozens of things that would make them feel better. Whatever was
Yeah.
making them feel not good, they didn't fix that problem in the best way. And
Hmm.
so like for example, let's say Alex needed omega-3s. I'm sure Alex is smart enough to know that you could get an algae supplement, because that's where the fish get it, is they eat the algae. They have the omega-3, so you can just get it from the source. If he didn't know this, and let's say he was losing some IQ points or something from not having omega-3s, then he goes to eat fish and goes, oh, I feel smarter, when really he could take the supplements. But so I don't know what to say about most people. If you do something and feel better, I don't know the best way to tell that person, don't do that one. Keep suffering for another month or so while we figure it out. So I guess I don't really have good answers for people like that. I hope they're willing to figure it out, but I feel personally like it's almost extreme for me to tell them to keep the
Mhm.
suffering going. But I don't think that's most people's case. I think most people, when if they were to stop eating meat and then go, oh, like, do you know Sam Harris?
Yeah.
I love Sam Harris, but I hate his take on veganism. Although he's sympathetic to the suffering, but he said he stopped eating meat and he felt horrible, and then he went back to it. And he must not have looked into it enough to realize that when you're addicted to food like meats, that when you stop doing it, your body essentially goes through withdrawals of sorts. And
Mhm.
so he thought that he was missing something that was making him feel good, but he didn't realize that his body was figuring out how it works. And yeah, I don't know the right answer for that one.
Yeah, because Sam Harris went vegetarian for a year or something, as I
Mm-hmm.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem with like especially the Petersons, is the way that they promote the carnivore diet
Mm-hmm.
to other people without having any evidence for it. Like it's all just anecdotal, obviously, and there's lots of counter evidence that plant-based diet helps to fight against chronic illness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's mostly where the bigger problem lies, in my opinion.
Definitely. I totally agree. So Jordan, I don't think does. I've watched plenty of his stuff, and anytime it gets brought up, he says, oh, I hate talking about this. And he said it just worked. He says it just worked for me. I'm not a nutritionist. And then he'll tell his part of the story. Michaela, on the other hand, I don't really watch her. I've seen some stuff. I was happy to see her talk to Alex, and I actually enjoyed that conversation. But she has a lot of like keto people and carnivore people on her podcast, and she seems to push it as a thing that's for everyone, not just for
Yeah.
people with the autoimmune disease she had. So yeah, I agree. I'm not a fan of that. Now I am a fan of not ending my like for getting information from people just because I don't like certain elements of it. Now I
Hmm.
don't care about Michaela, but like Alex, I will keep watching his videos because I love hearing his takes on philosophy. And so even if he eats fish, which I don't agree with, I don't need to shut him out. Same thing with Peterson. I might Jordan Peterson. I might dislike a handful of his political takes. I also might not like that he talks about religious stuff all the time because I'm not religious, but I do like a lot of his ideas on how to like improve yourself. So and definitely with Sam Harris, I love almost everything Sam says except for his takes on animals. But his takes on morality, being objective, I think is incredible. And I like his take on the idea of if something can suffer, it shouldn't suffer, and we should do everything in our power to make things not suffer.
Hmm.
um but yeah, well anyways, back to Alex. I'm trying to think if there's any other things that are floating around about what people are saying about Alex, or any other takes
Um,
you have.
yes, maybe we should talk about he was questioning the appropriateness of individual focused boycotts. What did you think about that?
Hmm. um can you tell me a little more on it? I can't remember exactly what he said.
Um, well, he said when it comes to veganism, he was questioning whether it's like effective to do an individual boycott. My retort to that is that veganism isn't only about convincing other people to go vegan. It's also about just promoting systemic change, protesting,
Mhm.
voting for change and pressure campaigns and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
but I think in this case, like he just felt like um, that like it was futile.
Mhm.
Maybe like he felt like he wasn't making a difference, and maybe that's why he stopped being vegan, or that might add to the reason. But I think
Yeah.
if that's the case, then it's not a very good reason because obviously he has this huge, platform on which he has promoted veganism and has turned many people vegan,
Mhm.
including me actually.
Oh,
So he
really?
does have
Oh,
a huge
awesome.
impact. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
Um, well, hopefully someday he watches this video. But
yeah.
yeah, I would assume he will keep having a big impact. He seems to have taken a break from all kinds of videos. I think his last one
Yep.
was on Hitchens, and that was like 3 weeks ago. But I'm guessing he'll keep talking about anything involving morals and philosophy. And I think he will keep having an impact on animal stuff, whether it's just factory farming or not. But yeah, as far as the boycott thing goes, I think that's complicated. I think it's complicated with just about anything, deciding how far to take boycotts. I don't I like the idea. I think it's amazing that people do street activism, but I have never done it myself. But as far as going to like a business and protesting outside the business, I think it's complicated because in some senses, I think a big part of what can help the vegan movement is not making the movement look bad, but it's hard to
Hmm.
know at what level because a lot of people would say anything's making it look bad, and some people would say nothing's making it look bad. Um, so yeah, I guess I don't really have much of a thought on the boycott element. I guess more I would say I mostly agree with you and not the assumed take that Alex has.
Hmm.
Um yeah, but I do think there is an issue with how well I think one of the best examples of the issue with how vegans sometimes take things is the reaction to Alex. Now there's nothing wrong having a negative reaction in general, but this
Hmm.
idea of, oh, if you're not vegan then you never were, and this person's so horrible, just anything that makes a non-vegan look at our attitudes and go, yikes, these people are scary. I think we should get away from. Now, some people will think our ideas are scary and dumb just because they think vegan ideas are dumb, but I don't mean that. We shouldn't like change our opinions or what we say based on that. But the best example I could give would be the other day I posted on Facebook asking people how long they had been vegan. Everybody said their things. There's like 150 people replied. It was amazing. One person wrote a comment just saying, "You guys are amazing." And I said, "Oh, thank you. How long have you been vegan?" And she said, "Oh, I'm not fully vegan, but I try to be. I try to cut out certain animal products, and not being vegan makes me sad, but I'm just not there yet." And
Hmm.
there was like a dozen people responded to this person calling her horrible and saying, uh, doing
Really?
what you're doing isn't enough. You need, even if you're eating one thing, you're causing the harm of this. And they were posting all these pictures of like slaughterhouse stuff. And it was to a person that was already interested in the movement. So I don't know how many people are like this, but on social media, it seems like it's the majority, but it's probably just the loudest majority. But
Yeah. No, I don't agree with that at all. I
yeah.
think like if someone is trying and they're interested in it and they even say that they want to move towards veganism, but
Mhm.
they're just finding it difficult. You should provide information, you should provide support, because
Mhm.
that's what more likely is going to get them to go vegan,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so that's a big thing I want to do with my channel because there's a lot of
Mhm.
different channels that talk about a lot of different topics. Lifting Vegan Logic is very good at breaking down the studies and what they all mean.
Mhm.
And I kind of want to take a different approach where I focus on how to make outsiders view us as reasonable, which is why the name kind of seems offensive that I call it reasonable vegan as if the
Yeah.
rest aren't. But I was willing to take that risk, and I want to focus on talking oftentimes to non-vegans and not even trying to convince them to go vegan, convince them to think about the existence of animal suffering. I want them to admit to
Yeah.
me that they wouldn't want to slap a cow in the face just for fun. And then if they say they won't slap a cow in the face just for fun, but they're willing to eat it because they think they need the nutrients, then I'll say, okay, but what do you think about if it's like a hot dog where it's processed and it's garbage and nobody would call it healthy? Then they might have to start thinking, okay, I'm going to keep eating this thing I think is healthy, but I'm willing to admit that eating a hot dog is like slapping a cow in the face because it's not killing it for a purpose that I can even agree with. And so that's the kind of conversations I want to have with non-vegans.
Mhm. I think that's an
So
interesting way to kind of start off the conversation with non-vegans, definitely.
yeah, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of people start off a bit too too ridiculous. But there's no right or wrong answer. But I feel like over the
Mhm.
years, I just want to try a different, maybe kinder approach. Uh, yeah, yeah. Um, all right. So was there one more element of the Alex thing?
Um,
I was
let's
trying
see
to
if I
think.
remember. I mean, he says that he was sorry for all the people that he has turned vegan activists.
Now that I wish I had the words right in front of me because that was kind of strange, but I think what he
Maybe
was
he didn't
saying
mean it that way, but it did like come off that way in the way that he wrote it.
when I heard somebody talk about that, I went back and read it, and the vibe I got was he was sorry if he convinced somebody of something of an element that he doesn't believe in. So if he like let's say he told people you must do this or you're bad. If you do this, then like because he would constantly talk about um that the suffering of an animal is not worth it for our taste buds. And so he would treat it as if anybody killing an animal is doing it for taste buds. Whereas if he now thinks that certain things like fish might be needed for health and not for taste buds, if he truly is doing it for not for taste buds, then he might be saying like, I'm sorry if I convinced you to preach it the way I preached it, or I'm sorry that I preached it to you the way I preached it. Where now I'm guessing if I asked him right now, kind of like he said in the video in
Yeah.
his words that he's against factory farming, he would say he doesn't want any animal to suffer for no reason, but he maybe has convinced himself that maybe fish need to suffer for our health. And so I don't think he meant it as drastic as it sounded. I think he in the same sense that he wants to end factory farming, I don't think he would regret convincing thousands of people to want to end factory
Mhm.
farming. He just would regret if he made anybody tell people like him that they're horrible people for eating fish, that he doesn't want to be a hypocrite. Maybe that's what he meant, but it's hard to know.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interpretation, definitely. Like, obviously, we don't have enough information, and it was a very vague post.
Yeah.
But do you think that he thinks that everyone needs fish to be healthy, or that he only needs fish to be healthy?
I think that he's making the claim that since he thinks he needs fish to be healthy, that he wouldn't want to claim that other people don't. I don't think he thinks everybody needs it to be healthy.
Okay.
I think he's just saying that if I turned you into a person like me, like, so let's say he convinces somebody to be an atheist, then
Hmm.
he is fully on board with a person being a complete atheist. But if he convinced somebody to think people are bad people when they eat fish, I think he's just claiming now that I think it's okay to eat fish, I regret making people be like my claim, if that makes sense. But I
Yeah.
don't know, because in a sense, like, we share our ideas and we all take from those ideas. I might take some of his ideas but not others. So I don't think he should even take, like, if he thinks that being a hardcore vegan is a bad thing, I don't even think he needs to take credit for it. He shared his ideas and people can take it or leave it. Like, you weren't brainwashed into being a vegan from Cosmic Skeptic, you just liked the ideas. So it is a strange claim. My only guess on why he did it would be that he must have seen something from another person saying that they went vegan and got maybe as militant as he was, and that they're bothered that he's not as militant, so he regrets the militancy. I don't know. I'm with you. I hope he just does a video explaining it further. It will
Yeah.
be interesting. I'm guessing a lot of people are lined up to watch that.
Yeah, no, like I'm even I'm even like questioning whether he's posting a video at all at this point. Because I don't
Yeah.
think he has like I don't think he has a really good way to like defend himself or defend his stance right now, especially when it comes to the nutrition aspect of it. Because like his top Patreon supporter was a plant-based doctor,
Hmm.
right? And I think
Yeah.
he also made a video like explaining the nutrition side of it and everything. So Alex should have the resources to understand like that. I don't know. It's just very confusing.
Yeah,
Everything's
it
very
is. That it's kind of
yeah.
interesting. That guy, I might get back in touch with him again, but before Alex even turned vegan, I was chatting with that same doctor, and we
Oh.
had a talk set up because I watched a video of him taking to Congress um a an idea, a proposition to do less animal testing, and it was a really cool video. I contacted him and he wanted to do a talk, but then he kind of just was flaky about it, and so we didn't end up talking. And when all this Alex stuff went down and I saw that guy and everybody was talking about him being the top supporter, I'm like, hey, I sort of know that guy. But yeah, I think he's mostly in the field of like laboratory stuff, and so I don't
Right.
know. It's complicated. Like I get my nutrition information from Michael Greger, Dr. Michael Greger with Nutrition Facts. Are you familiar with him?
Mhm. Yes.
Um, I have both of his books, and I I trust his ability to look at the studies and get the information. So that's where I get it. But when I hear
Mhm.
different debates about studies and why you should believe this study and not this study, I want to at least recognize the possibility that I don't have it all right, and the people that have done the studies that I personally follow don't have it all right. And so if different people have different studies that show different information, I guess I just don't want to make the claim that I know for a fact that this is exactly how humans should eat. And
Mhm.
so I don't it's really hard. I don't know exactly what to say, and I guess we'll find out if Alex does do a video. I don't know the difference between his health before he went vegan and what he felt about his health after, what was it, 3 years. I don't know if a nutritionist or a doctor told him add fish to your diet, or if he just did it on his own.
Mhm.
Um, so it's complicated. I would say for me personally, not only based on the information that seems to be abundant of why we should eat like a whole food plant-based diet, but even just looking at our natural way of being, we seem like we would be something like other primates, probably close to chimps, who eat 75% fresh fruit. Obviously they'd have to eat everything fresh, but I think their main thing is figs, but they eat 75% fresh fruits, and then about 24% of a mixture of greens and nuts and a few other things, and then a tiny percentage of, like, they eat some insects or whatever. And our teeth are similar to them, and everything about us is similar to them. The way we sweat is similar to them. So it
Mhm.
seems like our what nature intended on us to do is something like that, and it seems like the studies kind of back that up. So that's where I'm at. I just as a person that doesn't want to be thought of as a militant vegan, I don't want to put my focus into knowing that fish might not be healthy for us. But I would claim that even if it is somewhat healthy for us, if we do not need it to be also differently healthy, then we should cut out the suffering. Um, so
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. What did you think about Joey Carpstrong's take on this with the whole text conversation that they had?
Ooh, so I almost
Mhm.
I started making a reaction video to the text conversation, and then I set that aside and I focused on the rights one, and I didn't get any further past that to his other video because I was so
Mhm.
focused on those two. First of all, I don't think it's makes him bad that he announced a private text conversation, but
No.
because we have not seen the text conversation, I don't want to accept it at face value. Like, I don't want to say every word he said and the way he took it is what happened. I don't know. As you know, Alex is a very philosophical person. So he might have
Mhm.
been messaging Joey to give him example, kind of like that whole 3 feet thing, texting somebody to say, what do you think about this? do if I couldn't find food in this area? What kind of person does that make me if I eat certain food? I don't know what your average vegan would do if they truly weren't around vegan food and they were starving, but there was like already prepared non-vegan food and they've gone like a week without eating because they were just saved from some thing where they were stranded for months. Maybe they're on an airplane because somebody saved them and the only food in the airplane is some meat products, but they just eat it. Now this is not the case with Alex because, as people pointed out, in whatever area he was in France, there's vegan food.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It sounds kind of silly, but it's also like, I don't know what the text was. I definitely don't want to have a thought on Alex based on a claim of a message from Joey, which that's why I didn't make the response video, because I don't think bad of Joey for saying it, but I definitely don't want to make a stance on Alex because of a text somebody else said.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I think like however much lenience that you give this whole situation, I think that either Alex doesn't know how to really eat. So he doesn't
Yeah.
really know how to eat vegan in practice because I've been to France multiple times, different areas. It's not hard to be vegan there at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like he should know that, or like it's just it seems so out of character. Like he's so intelligent, and then he struggles with something like that. I don't get it. Either
Yeah.
he doesn't understand how to, or he's being like um, intellectually dishonest and looking for a way to eat animal products. But I also wouldn't claim that either. And obviously, we don't
Mhm.
have all the information, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we feel how we feel. So if somebody is passionate about something like not causing harm, but they would be willing to for their own pleasure, I get that. It doesn't make it right, but I get that. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what would be going through his head. I guess I would be curious if he even had interest in health though.
Mhm.
Like he seems like a size of a person that some people are just naturally thin, and it doesn't matter if they eat healthy or not healthy, they're going to look that way. So you don't know if they're healthy or not. Whereas everybody else that is not like that, they're going to be healthy depending on what they eat. If they eat, whole food versus eating like deep fried French fries or Impossible burgers, which is actually probably one of my problems. I have a hard time eating healthy, but I don't have a hard time eating vegan. But I want to get healthier. I want to cut out the garbage. But I do wonder when he's talking about being on these speaking tours and stuff, if his focus is that he can't find healthy stuff that's vegan, or if he just doesn't even have a care about that at all. I was at Disneyland recently with my family, and they have an insane amount of vegan stuff now. I guess where you live, you're probably so far from Disneyland, you're probably never going there. But have you been there?
No, I haven't, but I've been to
Okay.
Paris.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Paris has their own. Okay, I don't know about the Paris
Yeah.
one, but the one here in California, everything, like an insane amount of vegan stuff, Impossible stuff is everywhere. And it's awesome, but nothing healthy. And so I don't know, as far as restaurants, most restaurants and fast food is not healthy. So I don't know what Alex was looking for, what his take on any of that is. Yeah, I don't
Mhm.
know. It's weird. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing that response from him as well, though.
Yeah, no. My theory would be that he probably maybe eats mostly processed vegan stuff, and
Mhm.
that's why he was struggling to find something in France because it's probably harder to find processed vegan food there rather than whole foods. So maybe
Yeah.
that's something.
Yeah, that could be because that's one of the trickiest parts. Is I feel like most people don't have any interest in being healthy. It'll be the non-vegans argument for why they're non-vegan, but I think vegan or non-vegan, most people don't care to be healthy. Um, which is another reason I want to be healthy. I want to get like really fit and in shape and eating the healthiest stuff possible. That way, when I try to defend veganism, I can show myself as an example. Like, look at all these muscles. You can do this on a vegan diet, instead of it just being about the ethical side. Or I guess it's ethical with backing it up with some ideas there. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's probably a nice idea, but I wouldn't say like muscles equal health necessarily, of course.
True.
Yeah.
But muscles don't equal health. But I think that's probably one of the biggest things when you see people insulting vegans. They either will
Mhm.
say, "Oh, look at this scrawny vegan," or "Look at all these vegans that are overweight because of all the impossible stuff and whatever." And so
Yeah.
if enough vegans were just like super fit, and like, obviously we see plenty of them, but people are like, "Oh, I want to do what you're doing." Like, even though it's sad that somebody would want to do something because they want certain looks or they want whatever, it I guess every little bit helps. And it's good to have to show the information, like, you can do this without meat and be this healthy and have this,
Hmm.
like, all the levels, and you know um yeah, yeah.
True. No, I think vegans should be like a wide range of different kinds of people because in that way, like we normalize veganism because
Oh, for sure.
anyone could be vegan in that sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, that was a really good talk. Do you any last thoughts?
Not really, no. It was a good
Okay.
discussion. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. Well, let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Take care.
Take care.